Is escrow a big issue?
Well, escrow is a big issue because it's money that comes out of the players' pockets. So as soon as that starts happening, there's lots of people that take notice to that.
But that's the sort of the difficult decision you guys have with the growth factor. You know, on the one hand, you would think you always want to add the 5% because it adds to the marketplace for the free agents. But on the other hand, it might add to the escrow payments. So that's a tough call to make.
That's exactly it. And there's been lots of discussion on it. And there will continue to be. It's a tough decision too because everyone that has to make that decision is in a different place. You have to try to gauge your team. If you have a team that has lots of signed players, they might not want to use that growth factor. If you don't, if you're a team like Montreal, for example, that would like as much room as possible to move around, maybe you do. So the possibilities and the way you can look at that, there's so many different ways that it makes a very difficult decision. And then if you look at the CBA, the fact that if we don't all come into an agreement on one way or the other, the default is the 5%. So it's really, there's no system in place there. So there's been a lot of debate on where we should go. A lot of really good debate, and we'll see when we have the vote if we can come up with something, and if not, it'll have to default to the 5%.
You guys voted earlier this year.
Robyn. Appreciate it.
You guys voted earlier this year regarding the CBA, and I believe it's not to opt out rather than to extend. You made that decision. You could have opted out this year. The economy has changed, I think, since then, or I don't know. Do you think that you would have made the same decision? And do you think that you guys might want to extend in 2011, or is that too far down the road?
That's too far down the road to really know. And as you've seen with the way the economy is, it really can swing in a real hurry and change the landscape. For us this year, it's going to be really interesting as players, because if you look at last year, I think a lot of the teams had their corporate sponsorships and things like that locked into place, and then what happened was it wasn't until later on, I think around the end of September, right around the 20th or right to the end of September, when the economy started falling off. So a lot of those agreements were in place before the real bad things started to happen. Well, this year we now those contracts are up for negotiation, a lot of them, if they were multi-year contracts. So you could see a lot of softening in the in those type of deals with the teams. So it's a real fine balancing act that we have to find here now that we're tied into to the revenues with the CBA that we have.
To the extent,
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
It was nice
welcome.
meeting you.
hey Rob, to the extent all 30 teams aren't enjoying financial health right now, maybe half a dozen are hurting a little bit. Does the word contraction ever get thrown around in meetings, or is that the ultimate taboo, putting currently employed players in the NHL out of a job?
No, there's never any talk of contraction, and that's for a few different reasons. First of all, we want to see as many jobs as possible in the NHL as a union. With that being said, there's also really good places for those hockey teams to go.
Yeah.
And it was poor judgment by I think Gary on a lot of those areas that put these teams in places where they've struggled, and those are the ones that people talk about contraction. There's also been some mismanagement, I think, on some of those issues, and we all know that how many lifelines are you going to throw a mismanaged business before it's time for them to either move on or change in some way. And I think those options, whether it's Southern Ontario or other places in Canada, or even look in the U.S., I think there's some really good markets that are available in the U.S. yet. So the option of contraction hasn't even been talked about or thought about.
Would the players consider a loss leader, and by a loss leader I mean a team that likely won't be a top 10 revenue generator, but is positioned in a true hockey market, for example, a Winnipeg or a Quebec?
Have we thought about that?
As opposed to, say, Seattle or Portland? Is it just about the money where the teams go, or do you understand?
Yeah,
or
well,
do you look at sort of
you have to look.
geography of the
Yeah,
hockey
you have to
community?
look at a bunch of things. You have to look at is there how's the relationship between the fans and you know that type of team. You know, in Winnipeg there's a history there, so you know that it would probably be really strong in the first couple of years, and hopefully if you would put a team there in many years after that. But by looking at Canada, you have to then factor in the currency exchange, something that a lot of people forget about. A number of years ago, 5 years ago, that was really hampering the Canadian teams to where they were considered a small market team. Well, you know, now that currency has swung substantially in the other direction. Especially a couple of years ago, and now to where we're about 90 cents, I think, last time I looked. It makes Canada a lot more viable market, but there's that element of risk there. So if you go to somewhere that is more sustainable in the U.S., you can take that risk out of it. So you know, you have to look at a whole bunch of different things when looking at that. And I don't know, I'm not smart enough to say you know, how you measure what is more important than you know those others, or how you prioritize those.
How do people feel about a team in Vegas?
I think guys are having fun here right now, so I don't think they would.
You like Vegas? I just wonder, you know, I mean, do you think a Vegas team would do better than a team in, you know, Charlotte, North Carolina, or something?
Well, I think it would do a lot better here than Charlotte, North Carolina.
Or I should say Raleigh. Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Or I mean, it's a southern U.S. non-hockey town. Do you think a Vegas team would do better than a southern U.S. hockey town, or like Phoenix or something like that?
Yes, I do, and for a few different reasons. First of all, I think that they do a really good job of marketing here in Vegas, and there's some teams that do a good job of that, but I think here it's taken to a whole other level, and I think it would be pretty successful. There is a minor pro team here, and talking to some of the people that have been around that team, they say that the fans are great, and you also have a lot of people. I'm not sure the numbers on what Vegas attracts for tourists and visitors and things, but it's a substantial amount every year, and you know, to be able to get those people into a fraction of them into to see hockey, you have that pool of a large group that you can get, and also maybe even introduce new people to hockey as well. So I think it would be a real exciting opportunity for the NHL to have a team here in Vegas.
Who's the Flames' biggest rival?
Right now? Well, historically it's been Edmonton, but over the last couple of years, I think Vancouver has really become a pretty heated rivalry.
Who's your least favorite Canuck?
The majority of them, but maybe I'd have to say Burroughs.
Why?
Well, I can't tell you that really. It's a story that was told to me by a friend in Calgary, and I just can't share that with you.
Thanks for your time.